Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my humble channel. I'd love to introduce to you a beautiful friend of mine and sister from the stars, one of them, my friend here, Abigaille Richard. Thank you, Abigail, for being with us.
Yep. Thank you for having me on your beautiful channel.
Thank you so much. This time I pressed record. That's a long story. But what I wanted to say before we start our interview is basically how we met, and we both came across of these wonderful groups that support um, many people in the disclosure arena, which is like Alice Collier, Dr. Sala, Elena Denan, etc. So Tina, that's the head administrator, I guess, from the groups, has created these wonderful groups in which has allowed us to find people like-minded and with similar experience that allows us to share and connect. And one of them is basically not only having our connections here on Earth and getting to understand who we are, but the connections we have off planet. That it may sound, a little off for many, but eventually this disclosure that is happening is clarifying a lot of things for us. So you're using your beautiful platform to actually interview a lot of the members of these groups that have beautiful experiences and allowing them to share the memories and the connections from different races, and which is wonderful. And I thought, it's great to know that part of them, but I would love to get to know, like I did with Milan, my last interview. How about if we get to know the journey from coming into this earth and your childhood, your teenage years, etc., and how it brought you to this point, and how you're able to connect those dots and see how your life vision of who you are on this planet is. So I think with that said, it will allow us to talk about that you can talk about you and how your upbringing and your parents and where you live, etc. So, and I'll come in and out and see if I can get more out of you. But in the meantime, if you can start with that, that would be great. Thank you, Abigail.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Vicky, for having me on the channel again. And also thank you for just want to take a second to say thank you for everything that you are, but also everything that you do with your channel. You're bringing beautiful experiences from people, beautiful souls that come and share very important things. So that's very important. You're doing beautiful work as well as you're beautifully talented as
Oh,
well. You share
you.
music and beautiful other things. So just wanted to thank you for everything
I
that you are and
appreciate
do.
you. Thank you.
As for me, well, yeah, where to start?
I
Usually from
know.
childhood is probably the best way to start. I've had a strange kind of childhood, traveled a lot as a child, but I started my life with a little bit of a trauma, which had
Mhm.
perhaps some connection with, some of the struggles I sometimes had in my life. So I started with my mom having a little bit of a trauma on my birth, where she had a C-section and she actually had to she didn't feel the anesthesia, but felt it enough not to be able to scream her pain, but and inversely, and she was not able to. She could feel the pain, but she could not. She was not conscious enough to say that it wasn't
Verbalize it.
working as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been very traumatic for her. She had like an out of body experience, which was something completely new for her. She was not someone in the spiritual realm, and this
Mm.
stuff was not something she was used to. And so it was very traumatic for her. And from there started a bit of a depression, postpartum depression. And so I started my days on Terra
Mm.
with a little bit of stress and anxiety, because I was feeling, as an empath, I was feeling a lot of that distress and depression and sadness on her part, because it was very difficult for her to deal with that. And but at the same time, it opened her heart and soul to something different, which had to do with spirituality, and we're not just these bodies, where those souls can travel around. And that was something new for her, which also had an impact on her journey, which made her discover later people like Edgar Casey, for example, which played
Wow.
his healing practice and mediumship brought a lot also to my parents and myself, in terms of opening ourselves to these kinds of things, you know. So everything that comes in your life always brings
Mhm.
sometimes challenges, but also opportunities to grow and discover new things that will make your soul evolve and grow. So it's always it's a good thing as well. So from there, I I was a little bit of an anxious child, but at the same time, a very connected one. Like I was very connected to my soul, and I was a joyful and seeing all kinds of things out there that people don't see. Or I was able to use my the palms of my hand to provide some relief to people. I wouldn't say healing because I don't really believe in healing, but more facilitating the inner healing of,
Mhm.
you know, self-healing of people, things like that, or just very connected to kind of other dimensions and things. I was very, you know, out of the box. And that was also helped by the fact that I was homeschooled by my parents.
Mm.
So that was, you know, something that provided a context in which I was not caught up in this whole, you know, that
Cookie cutter.
matrix that
Yeah.
we all kind of grew up in, most of us. So that was a beautiful opportunity as well to discover or remain a little bit sovereign in my mind and soul for perhaps more years than other people do. And one interesting element that I like to mention is the at 4 years old, my mom wrote in her journal that one of the things I said is that I wasn't from here, and that my parents were not my real parents, and that I had other parents somewhere else, and that I had a husband and a child, a son, you know, somewhere. And, you know, I completely forgot about that. My mom forgot about that, but it was there in the journal from 1981. And so I did, you know, I went through my life, and only later that will kind of make sense, but I'll get back to that in a few minutes. But and I grew up as my parents were doing development work. So they were doing voluntary development work. So I kind of grew up in different countries, in Peru first, and then in Africa, in Cameroon, in Chad first, where a war started there, a civil war started. So we needed to be transferred to Cameroon. And we also did a contract in Mexico. And so by then I was a teenager, and I said to my parents, I want to belong somewhere. Like, I don't want to be an extraterrestrial in all these cultures where I'm always different from other people. So it was already kind of a thing, you know, to be either as a starseed or as a person who was kind of not fitting in the places where I was. So it always felt a little bit strange and kind of awkward with, you know, the places where I was. And so I said, I want to stay in Montreal now. And I want, because I was born here from
Mhm.
my mom is French originally. My dad is Swiss, but they lived in Canada for, you know, 60 years. So I was born here in Canada, but I didn't kind of grew up here. And so basically I said, no, I want to stay here, and I want to have a home and roots and stuff. But, you know, little did I know that I would not fit in here either, but that was a story. So I did a training in classical dance, professional classical ballet there for many years, and it was very competitive and very. I thought at first I thought I was going there with the joy of dancing like a little fairy, but then I soon realized it was really about competition and weight loss and anorexia and, you know, struggles, and, you know, it was really tough kind of environment. And so in 1991, I was 18 at the time. It was very difficult for me to kind of come out of that dancing environment, which for me was my whole life, and I
Mm.
didn't know anything else. And I thought that, you know, I wanted to be a professional dancer, but it was too competitive, and I was kind of struggling with personal issues. And at the time, I did what you could call a suicidal call for help rather than a real suicide attempt, more like a call for help. Took some pills and immediately called someone and say, you know, I took these pills. And
Oh,
so obviously I didn't want to go, but a part of me was in complete distress. And
I could
so
help.
I completely stopped dancing then. And I took 2 years to travel around and be with my dad a little bit, and, you know, try to find myself at this age. And I I've I was better after some time, but I would say that from then on, from 15 years old to like 48 or something, I've been through a tough period of my life. Like, most of my adult life was a big struggle for me because, first of all, I didn't fit in really. I always felt that life here on Terra with this whole matrix was not making sense. But at the same time, I wasn't really aware that we were in a matrix. I just didn't feel that I belonged here, but always that sense of longing that I always had, longing for I don't know what really. It just a
Mm-hmm.
sense of longing, which was it was tough. And I also had a little bit of a challenging relationship with my mom, with my mother, which was has now passed on, bless her, but 2 years ago. But it was a relationship where I always felt I kind of had to compensate for her inner lack of self-confidence and lack of self-worth and you know self-image, physical and other. And I always had to kind of make sure that she was happy, or that she was at least not crying, or that she was not, so I was kind of, I always at a young age felt responsible for her happiness in some ways, which she never really felt happy. She was always kind of struggling. And
Mm-hmm.
so it felt like a place where I was always trying, but never, you know, never
Fulfilling.
been able to bring that moral support I felt that she needed. And at the same time, I kind of took that responsibility, or was put that responsibility on my shoulders for some reason. And so that was a struggle, and also participated in my 30 years or 40 years of kind of adult struggles, because I was dealing with that. And meanwhile, I was doing some I had a long relationship, an 8 year long relationship with a guy that I know is kind of part of my soul group, a person I still like very much, love very much as a friend, but we're not together anymore. But I had like two relatively long relationships, but after that, something kind of cut off for me, and I didn't feel the desire to be in a relationship anymore for a long number of years. But I'll come back to that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to stay a little bit on focus with the kind of the timeline here. After that, I did some studies in art, visual arts, and after that, some studies. And I was fascinated by mythology, so I started anthropology studies
Mm-hmm.
first in mythology. Then, rapidly, my love for archaeology just bloomed, and it had probably had a lot of connections with previous past lives, but also this whole thing that we were traveling in different countries when I was young, where Mexico and Africa had beautiful culture, Peru as well had beautiful connections with ancient societies. So I was used to
Mm-hmm.
seeing ancient art and things like that. So that's something I connected with. And so I did all my studies in archaeology with a specialization in iconography. So the symbolism of representation is something that always had something that fascinated me, and I specialize in ancient Egypt. And so that was something that resonated for me very, very much. And then after these studies, I said, okay, after my doctorate studies, I handed in my thesis and I said, I'm done with this. I don't like academia. It's too um, structured, too
Compartmentalize.
much ego going on with people thinking they're so much better than others. And
Mm-hmm.
also I didn't like the way in which academia was really restricting our ways of thinking about ancient history. It was their version of it, and you had to stick to
Mm-hmm.
the the script, and everything that had to do with Atlantis and Lemuria, and perhaps connections between, I don't know, Mayan societies and ancient Egypt was not something they were supposed to get together, because there were different cultures, and there was no connection with Atlantis in the middle of in
Interesting.
there. So for me, it was like I had too much connection with Edgar Casey's work, which talked a lot about Atlantis and Lemuria and stuff like that, to just take this script and apply it. And it was like, no, I need to expand my view of things. So I kind of let go of the whole academia, and I decided to just remain a clerk in the libraries for a few years, and went back to my art and my creation, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
still doing today. My multidisciplinary creation, because I do a lot of writing, and collages of Japanese papers and photography and all kinds of work. I need to always keep my activities very diversified. This is kind of who I am. And after some time in 2018, I decided that I needed to go back to my, to my full-time art. And even if I wouldn't be struggling, and trying to live out of it, I said, this is what I need to do. I don't want to work for a big company or a big, university or anything like that anymore. I don't want to be part of this matrix. So I kind of let go of that and tried to have been kind of, I wouldn't say struggling, but at least trying to survive and, trying to live out of my art and things like that for a few years. And then in 2020, I realized that
Mm.
we were living in a matrix. I didn't realize that before. At least it was not that clear to me. And this is when I discovered Elena Denan's work,
Mm-hmm.
when the pandemic started. And then everything kind of, I tumbled into the the whole, what's the word again? The rabbit hole of
Yeah, big
disclosure of
rabbit hole.
everything. Yeah, the rabbit hole. And then, I started being connected to this whole community of disclosure and discovered
Mm-hmm.
that I really resonated with everything that had to do with galactics so much, with the Pleiades, then after that later with the Altean, and everything for me was like felt like home. I was like always like connected to these Pleiadians, and with Elena Denan's material, I discovered so many different kind of galactic races, and I felt connection with a few of them. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it became like a new reality where I was just like my life was not just the Terran life, but it was connected to something broader. And through this connection, I recovered memories of having indeed a husband and a child upstairs and parents and things, which I knew already as a young child, but I had forgotten about. And because I've remembered these things, it had become very difficult for me to be in a romantic relationship here
Mm-hmm.
on Terra because suddenly this frequency I was remembering from this upstairs, as we call them, partner, was so intense and beautiful and powerful as my twin flame that being in a relationship on Terra became almost impossible for me. And it's like nothing in the relationship I was having was as amazing or as powerful as what I had known in terms of frequency upstairs. So in a way, I stayed until now, still not in a relationship for many years. And I'm okay with that because I've
I'm
really,
okay with that too. For
yeah, yeah. I know
yeah.
we've talked about that, you and me. I mean, we're kind of, yeah, anyway, I'm not going to, go into your
No,
private life, but the
we're
point is
almost.
that we know that there's this thing that we compare
Mm.
our relationship with and makes it difficult for you. So I've completely immersed myself into my practice, thinking, okay, like not that I was becoming a nun or in any way, but just like putting my creative energy into my creativity, into supporting people around me in my channel, my YouTube channel, or doing whatever it is I'm doing now. And that's really a big, big, big part of my life. And but sometimes I still have that longing for that upstairs life and connection with someone.
Absolutely.
So, that's pretty much like a kind of an overview of everything. So
Mm-hmm.
it gives you an idea. I've worked a lot on myself for the last 40 years because of this kind of
Mm-hmm.
inherent like depression that was there in the background always with me that probably had also to do with my mom, but
Mm-hmm.
and myself as well as a soul. I came here with a lot of trauma from previous lives, like sexual, verbal, physical, every kind of violence you can imagine. It seems that I've suffered from in previous life. And I'm sure it's pretty much the case for all of us that have been on Terra for, many incarnations. But I came here not so much to bring, wonderful new things to Terrans, but mostly to heal. That was like, I was mostly here to heal. And then if I could also, while I was there offering support or bring things to people, then wonderful, but it was like kind of an extra thing. But I really came here to heal a lot of things. So I've been doing that for the last 40 years. I'm 51 now, and I've just been healing, transmuting, getting rid of this, getting rid of that, working on this, working on that. It's been like an inner journey for as long as I can remember. And it's been really the pivotal
Yeah.
center of my life has been about doing this spiritual journey and this inner healing. And that's also why it kind of provided me with a little bit of experience in a way in this, because I've been doing that for a while, and that doesn't make me special. It's just like just got accustomed to doing a lot of that. So in some way it has an influence in my practice now in trying to be of just humble and support to others in their own journey. So this is, yeah, this is kind of an overview of
Yes.
everything. I don't know if you have like if you want to have questions or anything.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
you were the only child, right? You didn't
yeah,
have
only
any.
actually, there's also kind of a trauma there because it would seem that I had a twin brother in
Really?
my mom's womb, which never really developed.
Wow.
Uh, it's kind of a soul that said, I'm going to go with you just to try it and see, because he had a lot of trauma and he wasn't sure he was ready for an incarnation. So he just came with me for a while, but then left before.
Really?
And he never
Wow.
developed. But for me, I had this obsession all my life about the twin. the twin, my twin brother, my twin brother, my twin brother. So that never really happened. And I was alone, only child, but also a lonely child in the sense that I had kind of to face my parents' challenges, as with no kind of brother or sister ally to help me in this. So I was kind of,
Yeah.
which is the case for many only children. So yeah, that was part of it.
But but
And that,
that's huge because obviously you had a connection there, you know.
yeah,
And you know, as you said, as many of us, you know, were born into this particular group of parents, you know, and then we, you know, from day one, it's like, you know, we're starting with what they're going through, you know, and unfortunately, babies feel it, you know, you felt her traumas, and it's just like people when people say, you know, that there's some people that sing to their baby. You know, if you're crying and having a tantrum yourself because you had an argument with your husband and you're like this, you know,
yeah,
they're gonna hear it too, you know.
mm, absolutely.
So
And
it's
we
something
come here as well to help our transgenerational lines. And I know I've been doing a lot of
absolutely.
that as well in those 40 years, yeah, a lot of on both sides, on both family lines.
That's a very good point because I think if we look back to our, you know, heritage, our family tree, we
Yeah.
see a lot of suffering, you know, and
Mhm.
it's interesting that you say that because I feel that it has to take one person or you know, within
Yeah.
that generational lineage to say, okay, it's enough. I'm not doing that. I'm going this way.
Yeah.
But going that way doesn't mean that it's going to be obviously easy because you're just going
No.
against the current, right?
Yeah. And also, I mean, I know that my personal decision to not to have children was also partly related to that. I was like, I will not impose that on them. So I'm going to deal with my own BS and my transgenerational stuff. I have enough there for a lifetime. I'm not going to impose that on the child. So, and there
Interesting.
was, also part of my soul, kind of the way my soul is, that I was probably in need of a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was not for this lifetime. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes you kind of need to stop the whole
The
thing
whole
there
thing
and say,
right
okay, we
there.
start from there.
Yeah, it's like putting the brakes. It's all of a sudden, you know, this all acceleration, and all of a sudden you're like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it doesn't feel right, but it's the, you know, and deep inside, it's the right thing to do
Yeah.
because if you don't
Absolutely.
break that cycle, you know, who will, you know,
Yeah, I know.
and these times they're like the time to do it, you know.
Absolutely.
So within the course of your life, it seems like I think we talked about you engaging in a journal
Yeah.
and recording at a young age a lot of your experience that when you look back now, it makes sense to you. Why are you at this point in time?
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
you want to talk a little bit about your journaling?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was not something that was purposely done in sense that it's not like my parents who told me you should be writing your memories.
Yeah.
It was just like just a feeling. Well, I always loved writing. I mean, I do creative writing all the time, and it's
Mhm.
part of who I am. So that was already kind of natural for me to write things. But I've often had the opportunity to at the time my mom was really also a lot about seeing intuitives and mediums and things. It was
Really?
kind of so often we would consult them just for different reasons,
Yeah.
for health reasons or whatever. And so I remember a few of them have told me that it was important for me to write my dreams because my dreams were actually not just dreams. Like it wasn't like I had different kinds of dreams. Some of them were very
Mhm.
symbolic, some were just the usual use of dream, which is to kind of let go of certain emotions and things, but that a lot of my dreams were actual intuitions or
Mhm.
astral travels or things that really were actually happening, and that it would be a good thing for me to take note of that. So it started with that really, and since a very young age, my mom was writing my dreams. I would tell her my dream and she would write
Really?
them. And after that, when I was able to write and draw, I would also accompany always my dreams with some kind of illustrations and things. And so that was that was like the main thing. But I also started at teenage years to, write about my emotions and things I were going through. And so now I have about, like, I don't know, maybe 3,000, page
Oh, wow.
of journals. I have so much material. I don't, it's a little bit overwhelming. But what's
Mm,
been helping me since 2020, since the whole, galactic thing, is to really take note of the memories I have regarding dreams, but also because of Elena Denan's beautiful what's the word again? I keep forgetting that word.
the contacts
A course online. How do you call that?
or the webinars
No,
or the
when
shamanic journey.
yeah, but there's a name for that. Like it's a anyway. I can't find the word. Doesn't matter. The shamanic journeys that she shared, like it's a kind of a guidance on how to do shamanic vision quests.
Okay.
And so I took, was really interested in that. So a workshop is the word I was looking for.
Okay.
Workshop. So I did that workshop in 2021, I think, and since then it's been an amazing tool for me
Yeah.
to recover my memory, because I'm very visual, but I think I'm somewhere between claircognizance and visual stuff. It's both of these intuitive ways. And so I use a lot of shamanic vision quests in order to answer some of my questions regarding my galactic contacts or any type of questions I have. And it's been really interesting because I've obviously took note of all the different shamanic journeys I've done. And so that helped me find a lot of my memories, galactic memories and things, which I'm now sharing on my channel as well. So that's been a great tool to recover my memories.
I think many of us
Link
are
things.
using different tools to
Yeah.
access our memories, meditation being one of them,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
intention before you go to sleep. And
Yeah. I mean,
it's
each person has to find their own way of
Mhm.
doing this, and sometimes combining different
Yeah.
techniques. But you have to find your way of doing it, but also knowing what's your,
Mhm.
if you're not like a clairaudient, like don't pressure yourself on trying to hear things, and if you don't hear things, you're thinking, oh, I'm so stupid. I don't have memories. I can't hear stuff. No, maybe that's not your, no,
No.
maybe that's not your thing. For me, it's more like claircognizance, because it has to do with these bundles of information that I receive sometimes. It's like, boom, I'm there, and suddenly it's like a knowing. I'm taking my shower, and suddenly I'm like, okay, I know that this person is my mother upstairs, and that my sister is here, and that I've lived that life there. And I don't know why. I just know that suddenly in like 1 second. And this is kind of an Altian way of doing things, I guess,
Yeah.
because this is kind of my soul matrix. But I mean, for other people, it's going to be clairvoyance or
Yes.
clairaudience, or it's just going to be
Dreams or
dreams.
insights.
So we have to
Yeah.
respect, the way in which we're naturally inclined to
Mhm.
receive information, and honor that, because and not trying to be someone else because someone else received them in that way.
Yeah.
So I would
And
encourage
we're
people to
healing at the
really,
same time. So we're going through a healing process.
yeah,
So depending on where we're at, we're more receptible to, if that's the right
absolutely. And
word.
certain things we're not
Yeah.
meant to hear or see or
Mhm.
receive before we have healed that particular trauma. And for me, it's been an interesting experience to notice that for the last years, it's been like that all the time. Like every time I would receive a particular memory or connection upstairs, it would have to do with a particular trauma that I've healed, or something I've kind of transmuted. And it's just like that all the time. So people sometimes want to have like, oh, I want to have all my memories back, but are you actually doing the inner work of like transmuting the stuff that's blocking these memories? And
Mhm.
you're not going to have those memories if you still have stuff that is blocking it. So it's a kind of you have to work simultaneously with the healing
Yes.
and transmutation, while at the same time trying to remember the stuff. So it's interesting process.
Yeah. And for everybody is an individual.
Hmm.
It's not like a cut and paste situation. It's
Absolutely
you
not.
have to
Yeah.
go through it in a different way. Maybe you can get insights from different people, but doesn't mean that
Mhm.
the way you're doing it is going to be for someone. It might be a
Absolutely.
different method. And
Yeah.
so it's having patience too, and realizing, like you said, that everything has its time frame as well.
Yeah.
Like you
When we're
just can't.
ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And for
And
those
also, it's
who,
not just
uh-huh.
us ready, but also, in terms of like what's happening in terms of the disclosure community. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
whole thing. It's like yourself embedded into the whole community of like, okay, maybe I'm ready to hear this, but now it's not time for this information to come out. So so it's everything is perfectly orchestrated, and it's just about being in trust and being in
Yeah.
patience, which is not always easy
Yeah.
about these things. Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading I usually go back to books that I read years ago, and I see them now in a different light. And I
Yeah,
picked up one yesterday, and it was very simple. It says, I mean, not verbatim, but basic. What it said was that until you know who you truly are as a being, you it will be very difficult for you to move into the reality that you wish, you know.
absolutely. Hmm.
So the focus, I guess, mostly the focus that one has to have in order to proceed in evolving and getting to know our capacities to really hone into who we are as a human being and beyond this body that we're in. So having that clarity gives you a tremendous power and
Yeah,
confidence to understand now the connection that we have not only here but beyond Earth.
absolutely. And
And
this importance as well of that grounding, because it's not just about remembering upstairs and living in that space of, it's also how to be
yeah,
a Terran human as a starseed maybe, and which on top of it is a bit challenging, but
yeah.
like not live upstairs, and just stay
Can't live
here.
here yet.
And you're here for a reason, and you have stuff to do, and you have stuff to heal, and you
Yeah,
probably have like 1,000 Terran previous life that you have to, come, deal
come
with.
to grip with. Yeah,
So yeah, it's not just about floating up there, which sometimes is a little bit dangerous to just
yeah.
living in that space of like longing from upstairs, but it's really about connecting, as always, the same story
Yeah.
of the roots that need to be as grounded as the branches. This way you have an equilibrium between, your
Hmm.
branches and your roots to have a healthy balance existence.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, I have even though it's a humble channel, I have different audiences. So whoever is watching to understand, I guess this comes obviously from acknowledging that there's the star seed um, beings. Um, I mean, obviously, we're not going to get into the details of it, but there's obviously the Terran that from Gaia, the original, and then we have the star seeds that it's been coming more and more uh, obvious and more, shown that there's a group of individuals that decided to incarnate on this earth, especially during these historical times.
This transition.
So yeah, I mean, would you like to elaborate a little bit and on that if you
Mm.
feel comfortable?
I'm not a big specialist of the theory of it,
Me
but yeah,
neither.
I think we could say that I mean, like Alex Collier says often, we're all ETs because of
Yeah,
our genetics. I mean, we're all our DNA, and unless you don't know about this stuff, I invite you to discover Elena Denan's work as well, who speaks a lot about these things. But I
absolutely.
mean, on Terra here on Earth, our genetics have been tampered with, positively and negatively sometimes, with different star nations, and which are just people like us. They're not like gods, or they're just, depending on their level of frequency anyway. In general, they're just like people like you and me, but they just live
Hmm.
somewhere else. And basically, so we came to live on Terra here, in incarnate. Our souls came to incarnate into these avatars, these bodies, which are already, in some ways, DNA has been tampered with, extraterrestrial DNA. So we're not, pure Terrans don't really necessarily exist. However, some souls were kind of born or came, I don't know how much in details you want to go into this, but let's just say we all come from this energy, universal energy we call source. Some people call it Imana, some gods, or whatever, great spirit, whatever. And then some soul just came from that source, and some of them immediately, or just the first incarnation, came here on Terra. So they're really Terran souls. Their soul matrix is Terran. They come from here. But some other souls, when their first incarnation, they went in other places. And so, for example, some of the Altians, like myself and perhaps yourself as well, there's this notion of connection with the Altian system. So we first incarnated in another world, and so we did many incarnations there. And then after that, we had the opportunity to incarnate in other worlds. And when Terra, our planet, had these issues with very regressive beings that were here, and there was a call to really for some souls elsewhere to come and incarnate into these avatar on Terra and just help with the transition and help, people realize that perhaps they were living a little bit in a matrix. And so I
Mm.
think this is kind of how you would describe the star seeds. But I mean, star seeds, it's not a they're no better than the Terrans. On the contrary, in the sense that we all, if we identify with the star seed, it's not like, oh my God, I'm so special, I'm a star seed. It's more like I come from elsewhere and I just came here to support the people that are the real Terrans, and they're the focus. Like they're the ones we should be
And we're
concentrating
trying
on.
to that yeah, yeah.
Help or support. It's not about like having like a power trip about, oh, I'm Altian or I'm whatever. It's really about like how can we be of help to the people who are, native from here, and help together create this harmony and create harmony in this place. And so I think this is how we could differentiate the Terran versus the kind of starseed thing, in my humble way.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that we have been cut off of certain history,
Yeah.
and that's where the disconnect comes. Like for some people that are new to this, is that we never got the whole history of our planet and the universe. It
Yeah.
was like just 6,000 years ago, I think, the most we got. So
Mm-hmm.
now, as we dig in and our curiosity continues, we're obtaining so much more information that
Yeah,
it's opening our minds and our hearts to see something bigger that than we were taught. And
absolutely.
with my
And we're
experience,
more than we were told, that we were
yeah,
just, we were told we're just this beings in a rat race where we're supposed to just
yeah,
sleep and work
pay
and go to
bills,
work, and while we're just sovereign, beautiful, unique beings that have a lot of powers that were kind of kept
yeah,
secret. And these powers are just, about knowing who we are and our beautiful, and we all have these intuitive things, and it's not just some lucky ones. It's just a question of having the time.
to
Because in this
own them,
matrix
yeah,
we're just so caught up in the slave
running
life
around,
of
yeah,
working, and that we don't even have time to go within and do the inner work of transmuting and healing and discovering who we really are. And I think this is what basically all the great masters told us about, maybe Yeshua or Buddha or whatever. It was
mhm.
about,
Go within,
we're all divine beings, and
yes,
it's just a question of finding that beautiful divine spark within us that we all have. But the system was, just made for us to just run like crazy and have
yeah.
no time to do this journey, which is so crucial.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember Alex Collier saying that who in the world, asked us to pay rent, to live here.
Why would you pay to live on the planet where you
Pretty,
were
yeah, I
born or
didn't
something
say it
like that?
verbatim, but he said,
Like
why
it
would
makes
you?
absolutely no sense that we
No,
would be paying for, the basic needs that
to
we should
live.
be provided for,
Yeah, it's like, planet Earth, if you want to live there, you have to pay, like $2,000, $3,000 in rent for two bedrooms. And I mean,
Yeah, and have no time to for
no,
yourself,
you,
and you
yeah,
just like raise kids and run everywhere and own two cars, and it's just the whole thing is completely absurd. But I think a lot of people are aware of that now, but it's tough to get out of this matrix, and it's
absolutely. Let me plug the computer. Give me 1 second.
yeah, sure.
All right. All right, I'm back. There we go. So, absolutely. I mean, it's been an eye opener for many of us
Yeah.
that in 2020, like you said, was like the pivotal moment of hell breaking loose. And everybody's like running around. What? What do you mean?
Yeah, and those
Well,
big struggles and division that took place as well, and
yeah.
in the same time with all this, it was kind of challenging for us all. So
Wow. But again, going back from as a child and now as an adult, does it make cohesive sense that what you've gone through? Does it
absolutely, I
break?
don't regret anything,
Mm.
even the certain challenges I've had with my
Mhm.
my mom, which I love, but I now realize that everything has its purpose. And now that I also, for example, very lately, like a couple of days ago, I realized that I had a connection with my mom upstairs, and I know who she is upstairs. So all of this gave me a really interesting perspective, because from now on, I realized that she was there to play a certain karmic role to help me in developing, for example, through the contrast she was bringing, developing perhaps my my sovereignty and saying no to certain things and developing my boundaries and all kinds of things that were extremely useful as a soul that I learned to do. So that's just an
Wow.
example, but I mean every single challenge I've had in my life that we all
Yeah.
had challenges, were there to give us the opportunity to grow and as souls, because personally in my own view of things, that our souls are here to evolve here or elsewhere. I mean, our souls are just meant to evolve all the time. The
Yes.
inner journey is never done. Even when we
Hmm.
transition here, we'll still be journeying upstairs, or
Hmm.
if we're in earth or whatever, but it continues. And so we're always there to do that. So, I mean, we might as well start it young. And so I just don't know. I have no regrets. I mean, I think that everybody on my journey has been a person who gave me a gift of knowing myself better or learning
Hmm.
how to love myself better in the long run. Sometimes it took some, decades.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't regret anything. And yes, there's a connection because as a child, I remember I was the person I'm kind of upstairs in the sense that I'm
Yeah.
this
That there is
soul.
a validity in it. It's not like all of
Yeah,
a sudden you had this, you know, dream, or I mean, not that dreams are not important, but as a
yeah,
kid,
yeah.
to
Mhm.
have to say something like that out of nowhere, and kids don't lie. I mean,
Yeah.
adults lie.
Yeah, as kids don't lie. And my mom didn't journal everything I said. It was interesting that she wrote this particular thing, which stayed like it was like, why this thing rather than another,
Yeah.
so it was interesting. So it was just kind of an interesting corroboration, but there's now so many that come
Yeah.
also from other people in my surroundings, such as yourself and other of our friends or sisters, and it's becoming also a journey of waking up with each other, like we're helping each other as well connect. And in that way it was probably also soul contracts where we said, okay, I'm going to tell you this and that's going to kind of trigger that in you, and then that event's going to come and then it's going to be the perfect timing. And I'm pretty sure this is kind of how it works. So it's fascinating how everything and everyone is connected in that way, and it's an
No.
incredible
It,
kind of tapestry.
yeah, and like you said, I mean, obviously it has been a painful, excuse me, journey, but there's a reason for everything.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
no, no, it's no problem. Yeah, and i have no I have nothing today that I would say has traumatized me enough to say
Mhm.
that I'm in anger or regret. I'm a place where I can see each of these challenges as an opportunity to grow. And so that's a beautiful gift I'm giving myself, because I'm not in this victimization. I'm into this responsibility of my own life and sovereignty, which is a good feeling to be at, because many years I spent a lot of time in resentment and all kinds of things we all went through. And it's a good feeling to feel responsible for my own life choices, even
Yeah.
as a soul. So
No,
yeah.
it's awesome to talk to, like you and Milan. Sorry, I don't since I started talking to you or when I got into the video,
Okay. You're
my
liberating
throat's been
something, I
like,
feel.
what was that?
Maybe you're liberating something.
Something's going on because I'm like, but as we continue to connect and talk and we see all these beautiful synchronicities, and even though we went through hell like many others, we knew that that had to happen at all to break us open to a different experience in this physical world, because there's no other way to probably transmute and to go through this by being physically
Yeah.
um, here in a physical body.
Yeah, the experience, because upstairs I'm pretty sure we have like our souls know like
Mhm.
how doing this or that would help. But as long as you don't do it with every fiber of your body, you don't experience it. You have to do that. This is why we're on Terra.
Yeah,
And although
it's
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 not
a it's a
comfortable sometimes,
painful.
it's part of the deal. I mean, when you come back from that
Yeah,
experience, you're like, you know, bring it on. I can take it. Been
yeah,
there,
we've
done that.
been there and done that. Give me the sword.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
boot camp.
darling, we can talk longer, but
Yeah.
what else would you, I guess, what would you like to leave our listeners with, unless you want to add anything else, to our conversation at this
Well, I'm not
juncture?
going to be very original. I think pretty much every one of my videos in the last 3 years I've been saying this, but
Hmm.
an invitation to go within to do the inner work, to sometimes give yourself the opportunity to find some real silence, but also silence in terms of activities and things in order to give yourself the opportunity to recover who you are and hear. Some people it's hearing a frequency of who they really are. For some people it's just a knowing. But just give yourself the chance or the opportunity to have a space of void. And I don't mean void in the sense of like scary, empty, dark space, but in sense of like not having a bunch of things, because our world is programmed to completely overwhelm us with information, with noise of all kind. And it's our responsibility to sometimes stop and say, okay, I'm just taking that time for me. For example, I take like one day a week where I don't go on electronics, and that's my day, and I'm going to go into beauty museums, things. That's my way of doing it. Other people, it might just be like sleeping the whole day, or just
Hmm.
read, or just walk in nature, but give yourself this opportunity to go within and see this, make this transmutation, because this is the only way in which you're going to be able to evolve. So it's always a balance between action but also going within, and it's always the dance between both that helps you evolve, in my own personal view, humble view.
Absolutely. I concur.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, darling, where can our listeners find you?
Where they can find me? Well, I have a website.
Oh,
It's
it's right there, Abigail.
abigailerichard.com. Yeah, it's under my
Absolutely.
name here, abigailerichard.com. Pretty much everything I do can be, accessed through that website. I also have a YouTube channel that I've
Mhm.
had for the last 3 years now, where I share about galactic memories of myself, but also, like I said, I give the opportunity for people to come and experience, to share their experiences or their galactic memories or inner earth memories. I also share some of my art there, and on my website I
Mhm.
have also an art shop of where I share my creations, my Japanese
Absolutely.
paperwork. And yeah, and I also have a practice of which is called harmonia, which is very relatively recent, where I give the opportunity for people to contact me if they need certain services of decluttering and of their spaces and things like that, which is very physical, but also an opportunity to have receive some support or help if they're going through challenging times, either on their spiritual journey or inner journey. And I'm not a healer, I'm not a psychologist. It's just an opportunity to offer an ear, a presence, and it's on a donation basis. So it's just an opportunity for people to, since it's something I've been doing for a few decades, I feel that somehow humbly I can, with my intuition, and perhaps help a little bit in some ways. So
No, I think
that's on my website as well. So,
you're definitely intuitive and talented and a
oh,
great
thank you.
soul. So I
Thank you.
recommend that, people listen to you and reach out if so. So thank you, dear, for
Please do.
being here in this space and sharing your personal story, at least a condensed version of it. And I hope others can, open up and feel free to share their life experience, because we're all here to heal and to recognize who we truly are. So
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
accepting these difficult parts
Yes.
of our journey is also part of who we are. So we should not put that aside.
Yeah.
So it's good that
Accept.
we can share them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, very much, Vicky, for everything, for having me, and for having all these other beautiful people you
I hope
bring to
to have
us.
more. Absolutely. Thank you, dear. Thank
All
you.
right. Take great care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. Bye bye.